Heads up, you are in the Hoodwood. I'm the Black Bandit KJ Green, welcoming you to another edition of Sports from the Hoodwood. Coming up in this edition, I'll have my thoughts on the Drew Brees comments and his apparent walkback of said comments. The NBA, NHL, and MLS set for a restart. I'll outline their plans and if I think they can make it work on a tight window. We'll have the Hoodwood Hot 5 along with Phat, Head Slap, and a multitude of opinions. Hey, let's take the remote and get everything started. Sports from the Hoodwood gets started right now.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest, unfiltered commentary and insight on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's Hoodwood's hometown hero, KJ Green.
Greetings from the Hoodwood, where we stand for justice and we stand alongside protesters who are agitating for justice for George Floyd. It happened in a city I'm very, very near and dear to my heart, Minneapolis, and we in the Hoodwood stand with the protesters, not the rioters, but the protesters. I'm your man KJ Green, welcoming you back to another edition of Sports from the Hoodwood, and in light of the kneeling and protesting and some unrest that has gone on in major cities, a number of prominent athletes, sports teams, prominent figures have come out in support of the protesters. Again, I say protesters and not the rioters. Now, one individual who has basically made statements against, and I wouldn't say against, the terminology more of not in conjunction with the kneeling, is Drew Brees of the New Orleans Saints, who has, I would think, been widely admired over the last 19 years, first playing with the Chargers and playing a long time with the Saints. He had come out with comments on Yahoo Sports on Wednesday saying that he had issue and took umbrage with those who knelt during the national anthem, saying that it was disrespecting the flag, saying that kneeling in protest was doing disservice to the flag. Now, Brees harkened back to his grandfathers who served in World War II. Yet, I feel that he seemed blissfully ignorant of the people of color who served as well. Now, I can say that my grandfather served in World War II. My father's father served in World War II. He served in the European theater, served with distinction. My father had 2 tours of duty in Vietnam. Now, I'm thankful that he survived both tours of duty in Vietnam because it happened before I was born. So, but still, to use almost exclusive license, saying that, well, my grandfathers fought in World War II, and that's who I'm thinking of, and that kneeling disrespects them, does a great disservice to those people of color who did serve as well and were not afforded the same kind of privileges and rights that they had fought so hard for and earned fighting in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and so forth. The protest has never been about disrespecting the flag or the military. Many seem to forget that a former Green Beret advised Colin Kaepernick to kneel for the national anthem rather than sitting on the bench. Because initially, Kaepernick was sitting on the bench while the national anthem was being played. He encouraged him to take a knee. And many people forget or choose to ignore, whichever the way you want to see it, that part of the protest. Wanting to cover up such protests, ignore the message by saying that, oh, to do so is disrespectful. It's disrespecting the flag. It's disrespecting the anthem. The flag and the anthem are symbols. While giving proper due respect, taking a knee is not spitting on the flag, ignoring the anthem, just walking away. It's instead bringing a spotlight to what they were protesting. And for the longest time, Kaepernick had been shunned, ostracized. And it seems that now the fruits that he had planted are now coming to bear with the tragic death of George Floyd at the hands of the Minneapolis police on camera in front of a large crowd. Kaepernick had pointed out police brutality was the single reason he was protesting. Not to disrespect the flag, not to disrespect the military, not to disrespect the country, but to call into focus what was going on with police brutality. And he was shunned, ostracized, and more or less blackballed. Now, what he's saying basically is saying, you know what? There it is, right there. And Drew Brees then, when called out on these comments, you had notable athletes like Aaron Rodgers, teammate Malcolm Jenkins, Hall of Famer Ed Reed, posting comments on social media criticizing Brees' comments. Ed Reed called him a punk, a sissy. Malcolm Jenkins was moved to tears, saying he looked up to Brees and felt disappointed. Brees then the next day went on in Instagram and said that his comments completely missed the mark. He was backtracking quickly. And many felt his repudiation of said comments was disingenuous, that it was a quick fix to a tone-deaf problem. I like Drew Brees. I think he's a solid citizen. I think that his comments, while missing the mark, I don't think it was inherently racist. I think they were ill-timed, given the climate of the day. I think they were ill-informed, given what people of color have done in the military and have served with distinction. But I think Drew Brees had something to say, and I think he said it the wrong way. Now, will this hurt his, the latter part of his career? Possibly. I worry that he might get the treatment like Paul Crewe did in the movie Longest Yard, where his offensive lineman just let the defensive lineman bum rush once. And this may damage the Saints, a potential playoff team, could damage their locker room harmony. This will be an interesting fact to watch, to see if the fracture that now is opened up, if this can be repaired. If Drew Brees, a respected and revered team leader and figure on the Saints, in a very, very heavily skewed black community that New Orleans is, if he can repair this fracture with just a simple apology and repudiation of his comments. He said he missed the mark. That's an understatement of the year. But it's what's going to happen going forward will tell the test of time if he'll be forgiven in the Crescent City. It's something that you see missteps people make, and if their reputation is enough where it can be able to cover something up like this. Drew Brees has done a lot for the New Orleans community and has been very visible and vocal in these times. But one has to wonder if that's going to be enough to cover up this vocal misstep. Let's take a time out and come back and look at the sporting landscape and the restarts. NHL, MLS, NBA, all on track to restart within the next 30 days. Can it work? Can they shoehorn a playoff and regular seasons into a limited amount of time? Sports from Hoodwood comes back at you after this.
You're tuned into Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for no-nonsense commentary, insight, and opinions on the world of sports. Here now live in living color, black by popular demand. Your host, KJ Green.
You are back in the Hoodwood, and the music that you hear is provided by Hoodwood's house band, the Uptown Gang, which I'm a part of. Actually, we're all music, but that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about restarts. We're finally getting restarts. Can you believe this? The NBA, NHL, and MLS have basically set frameworks in place to restart the season. In the case of the NHL, basically go to the playoffs. Basically, the NHL season is by and large done. They've played more or less 70 games in the NHL season, and with that, we'll go ahead and start their playoffs. The NHL being on track to resume in July in 2 hub cities, which basically the teams will basically be in a bubble, and they'll have an unbracketed 24-team tourney reseeded every round, so that they will have the highest seeded team will face the lowest seed in every round. They're going to start out with a 5-game qualifying round, then 7-game rounds to follow. So basically, it's going to be the 16-team tournament that you're used to, but you're going to have a qualifying round where the top 4 seed teams in each conference, which is ranked by point percentage, right now it's going to be Boston, Tampa Bay, Washington, and Philadelphia in the East, St. Louis, Colorado, St. Louis, Colorado, Vegas, and Dallas in the West. They're going to play separate round-robin tournaments determining seeding in the first round. And then with those games, they're going to be played like regular season games and shootout rules. The remaining 16 teams then will be seeded by conference and play a best-of-5 play-in series. Now, these games will be played with playoff overtime rules instead of a 5-10-minute overtime. It's going to be full 20-minute overtimes. And then these play-in series will determine which teams will advance to the traditional 16-team playoff Stanley Cup bracket. So basically, the top seeded teams are going to play round robin to see who gets seeded where and who plays who in this opening round, who plays the winners of the opening round games. Then those opening round games will then move on to the first round, and then those will be best of 7. I like this format. It's going to be interesting to see how the teams after a 3-month layoff are going to be able to pick up, and if there's going to be a lower seeded team that all of a sudden gets hot. I mean, we all know what happened to Tampa Bay last year. They fell on their face against Columbus. But we want to see how these teams, especially a Boston at 100 points, especially a Washington Caps, 90 points, how these teams that were near the top of the NHL, how they're going to respond to the long layoff.
It's 6 o'clock.
The clock on the wall says it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to get that out. Anyway, let's look at the NBA, and their Board of Governors on Thursday voted to restart at the end of July. The potential Game 7 NBA Finals would be on October 12th. If everything goes the distance, the latest game would be on October 12th. I remember seasons starting on October 12th. And you're going to have the 2019-20 season start almost a full calendar year after it began. Now, 22 teams are going to finish the season with 8 games to solidify up the seeds, firm up everything for the playoffs. You're going to have 13 teams in the West, 9 teams in the East. Those are basically the teams that are close enough to playoff contention. And the 16 teams that are currently on the right side of the playoffs will be joined by the Pelicans, Blazers, Suns, Kings, and Spurs in the West, and the Wizards in the East. So basically the 8 seeds in the East are pretty much all but locked down, and the Wizards are going to have to run down that 8 seed. Now, if after those 8 games, that 9th seeded team is within 4 games of the 8th seed, there'll be a double elimination play-in tourney, and then once the field has been set, all the teams will play best of 7, 4 rounds leading up to the finals, which, as I mentioned, the potential 7th game of the NBA Finals, if everything goes the distance, would be October 12th. Now, the draft lottery will be shifted to August 25th. The NBA draft will be October 15th, just a few days after that potential 7th game. Free agency will begin on October 18th. And the next season's training camp, quick, fast, and hurry, will start back up in November with the 2021 season starting on December 1st. Now, this is all well and good, but of the teams that are eliminated from the playoffs and won't be playing, there could be some teams that won't play a competitive game for 9 months. Is that putting teams behind the 8 ball or what? And then you have a team, whoever the 2 teams that get to the finals, they're barely going to have a month and a half layoff and come right back. And people say, well, they've had 3 months to relax and do whatever. But to play a certain amount of time, stop, and then restart, it just sounds really, really messy. Now, the owners voted 29-1 to restart the season with these parameters. I guess the biggest issue, like I said before, the 8 teams that are not going to be in the playoffs, the details are going to be still threshed out. They're still working out the kinks of it, but it seems like we've got a date to shoot for. We're looking at the end of July as starting an NBA season, and I'm excited for it. And with NHL and NBA back on the stage and MLS jumping up into the mix as well, you've got your summertime back filled up. Well, what about baseball? Baseball, I don't know what it is about Major League Baseball that has the ability to just screw up a perfect situation. They could have realistically had the sporting landscape all to themselves for a number, at least 6 to 8 weeks. But all they've done is bicker and fight. The players who I have gone on record here in the Hoodwood as being a supporter of. Now, a lot of people say, well, they're making all this money and people act like the owners are these poor paupers that are setting up shop and not making any money. Now, granted, the owners are going to lose a lot of money this year without any fans in the stands. They're going to lose money on revenue. They're going to lose money on ticket sales. They're going to lose money on merchandising. That is a given. We get that. We also get that the players have made some concessions about prorated salaries, about taking different teams and moving them around, a universal DH. They're making concessions. They said, well, let's play 114 games. And the management side of labor flat turned it down. And it seems like they don't want a season to be played. They want to say, we're losing all this money and go into the CBA labor negotiations by saying, we're poor. We have no money. We can't afford this. We need drastic pay cuts. It seems like they're willing to deep six this season in order to get the players finally to get a noose around their neck, to get salaries, quote unquote, under control. No one's telling these owners to throw out this exorbitant amount of money on players. No one told the owners to throw $300 million at Giancarlo Stanton or Bryce Harper or Mike Trout. Nobody told them to do that. But that's what the market will bear. So that's what they're going to try to pay them. Now they want concessions. They want the money back. They don't want to pay that kind of money. The players say, if you're poor, open up the books. Let's see it. Show us something so we can say, okay, you're losing money. We can fix this. The owner's like, y'all don't need to see these books. Y'all just need to go what we're telling you. So MLB is stuck in the mud. NHL, NBA, MLS brokered a labor deal at the 12th hour. Literally. They had a deadline set for afternoon on Wednesday to broker a deal, or they were going to lock out the players. They came to a deal. Major League Baseball is going to hurt itself irreparably. And I'll have some more information on that, more thoughts on that, and the final word for the board. Let's take our final timeout. Come back with the Hoodwood Hot 5, along with Phat and Head Slap, and as previously mentioned, the final word from the Wood. Sports from the Hoodwood heads down the home stretch after this.
You're tuned in to Sports from the Hoodwood, the internet's foremost location for the most honest insight, thorough analysis, and unfiltered opinion on the world of sports. Now, once again, here's the man of the hour, After Hours, your host, KJ Green.
Running third and headed for home here in the Hoodwood. My name is KJ Green, and let's finish up strong with the Hoodwood Hot 5, Phat, Head Slap, and the final word from the Wood. And yes, this time, this edition, we actually do have 5 topics in the Hoodwood Hot 5 and the Phat, Head Slap. There's been a little bit more information and stuff to digest this time around. Is it me? Or is Greg Popovich, coach of the Spurs, the best critic of President Trump ever? Now, I'm not a Spurs fan, never claimed to be a Spurs fan. I think the Spurs style is boring. But Greg Popovich seems to come out with the most withering criticism of the president, and it's always on point. And it's just sharp, and it's to the point, it's succinct, and it makes so much sense. And you notice Trump doesn't say that much about Greg Popovich. He may throw a little bit, a few bars. He threw a bunch of them at Steve Kerr. But he kind of left Popovich alone. He knows when he's out of his league. And I think that Trump will be out of his league if he try to Twitter war with Greg Popovich. I don't think Pop is on Twitter, but I think he would make enough comments that he would be noticed and heard. Now, our second topic in the Hoodwood Hot 5 regards Alexander Katai. If you don't know who that is, or if you may be just a soccer fan of the MLS LA Galaxy. Now, so much not him, but his wife, Taya. Taya made a series of social media posts that were highly critical of the protesters across the country, but also had racial undertones. And the LA Galaxy was not having it. They basically called Katai on the carpet and basically said, hey, yo, man, get your wife. And you're allowed to have your opinion. Nobody says you can't have your opinion. But when your opinion is racially tinged, when it is racially demeaning, that's when people have problems. Have all the opinions all you want. But when you start bringing race into it, when you start calling people monkeys, that's not good. And that should be unacceptable. Like I said, Alexander Katai needs to get his wife, and quickly. Third topic this week in the Hoodwood Hot 5 is a pondering question. Why are the New York Rangers and New York Knicks the only pro teams that have not made a statement about the George Floyd murder and the protests that have followed? I'll give you one hint. One common denominator of them both. It's the owner. It's the owner. James Dolan. Are you surprised that James Dolan, the most clueless owner in sports, I used to like to talk about the stupidest coach in sports. I used to always talk about Rex Ryan being the stupidest coach in sports, and Jeff Van Gundy and Stan Van Gundy being the stupidest coach in sports. Or Bobby Valentine. I used to love talking about him. They pale in comparison to James Dolan. Dolan is the stupidest owner in sports. And that's a well-traveled title from Marge Schott to Mike Brown to Donald Sterling. But the collective actions of these three starting to pale in comparison to the cluelessness of James Dolan. He says he doesn't want to add to the fire, that he wants to basically say as little as possible and let the people who are protesting say what they need to say. In this instance, in this day and age, silence is complicity. And there's no need or no room for silence on these parts. People need to know that the teams that they root for, the sporting entities that they support, are supporting them in this national time of crisis. James Dolan and in turn the New York Knicks and New York Rangers are failing this test woefully. This dude is the most clueless. Staying in basketball for our fourth topic in the Hoodwood Hot 5, could Kevin Durant make a comeback for the Nets for the playoffs? Now, Durant hasn't played any time for the Brooklyn Nets, still getting over the Achilles tendon injury he suffered in the 2019 NBA Finals. But with the season looking like it's going to start at the end of July, he will have been out a full season and have done enough rehab where he could play and make the Nets, who are now a 7 seed, a dangerous dark horse in the playoffs. If Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are together and they click, oh mama, the Nets will be a danger to every team, especially to Milwaukee. That will be a battle I would love to see, a 7-game series. Kevin Durant and Giannis Antetokounmpo going head up. Oh boy, that's must-see TV, even in an empty arena. And I don't want to hear anybody, switching to our fifth topic here in the Hoodwood Hot 5, I don't want to hear anybody say there'll be an asterisk about next to anyone who wins the NBA or the NHL titles respectively. Whoever does eventually come out on top. realistically will have gone through so much with a 3-month delay and then having to basically recalibrate and then go through playoffs, qualifiers, and then, like I said, 4 rounds to get to their penultimate championship games and win these? An asterisk? No. This isn't 98-99 where teams have played a 50-game season. The teams have played a majority of the season and had to go through 4 rounds of playoffs. No asterisks needed here. Let's take a quick look at the Phat Dap, Head Slap of the Week. Phat Dap of the Week goes to the numerous players and organizations that have been more than eloquent in their support of the protesters. Most notably, a team near and dear to my heart, the Minnesota Twins. They have stood with protesters in the symbolic blackout that just occurred on social media on Tuesday. They took their iconic TC logo and draped it in black, and framed in just a little bit of white stenciling around the TC. I loved it. I found it encouraging that an MLB team would allow an organization to do this, and being with the city at the focal point of the protest, it was a grand gesture. Phat Dap to the Minnesota Twins for getting it. Our Head Slap of the Week goes to the Buffalo Bills quarterback rookie Jake Fromm, whose text conversation from 2019 shows real cluelessness. He was talking about making guns so expensive that, quote, only elite white people can get them. What the hell do you mean by that, Fromm? Elite white people? Now, I can understand about gun control and saying making them so expensive, but the terminology elite white people just comes off in this day and age as seriously tone deaf. Now, Fromm, for his part, did make a full apology and repudiation of his comments, saying that he never meant to imply that he was a, quote, elite white person, but it seems that his cavalier choice of words had to be put in check, and quickly. And now, without final... try that again. And now, without much further ado, if I can get my mouth in gear, we'll take a look at the final word from the wood. The final word from the wood basically asks this question. Has MLB not learned anything? Now, Major League Baseball has a long checkered history with labor. Since the ascension of Marvin Miller in the MLBPA in 1966, Major League Baseball owners and the players have often been at daggers drawn over the way the games have been played and compensated. MLB has had labor stoppages in 1972, 1976, 1981, 1985, 1990, and 1994. Now, the stoppages in 1976 and 1990 were lockouts that the owners had locked players out of training camp, while the MLB players went out on strike in the other occasions. But these strikes were often provoked by things that the owners had done. Now, with 25 years of labor peace, the MLB owners are trying to provoke a work stoppage, though the players will likely get the blame for it. With the season now almost 2 months tardy in starting, the MLBPA made a proposal to start the season with a 114-game season, expanded playoffs, no additional salary cuts, and a temporary universal designated hitter for this year and next. The season will start at the end of this month, June, and run through the end of October. That's the regular season, with the playoffs all being in November. Major League Baseball management's response? Crickets. And no counterproposal. MLB fears a second wave of corona would disrupt the postseason if it ran in November, and that the broadcast revenue, some $762 million, that would come with it would be lost. Management has suggested, though not formally proposed, a 50-game season. This hasn't been a formal proposal, but it's something that is suggested. MLB, it seems, in my opinion, seems content to sit on its laurels and have a full year go by the boards. Now, we've already had our first Memorial Day without baseball for the first time in 140 years. Think about that. The last time that the U.S. saw a Memorial Day go by without baseball was 1880. Rutherford B. Hayes was president. 140 years through wars, through depressions, baseball has always been there. Major League Baseball owners and players have never experienced a labor stoppage. And when I say that, I mean the current owners and players, very few of the current owners and none of the players have ever experienced a true work stoppage. It's foreign to this generation of players and owners. Few of the current owners were around for the work stoppage, and the owners now are trying to wring as much out of the players as that they can. They do not want to pay the players a prorated salary and want to cut said salaries as much as possible. There's a proposal on the table that would have players that are making over $20 million this season have a 90% pay cut. Now you're saying $20 million, you're making that much money, you can afford a 90% pay cut. I want to see anybody take a 90% pay cut and be happy with it. I don't care what you make. That's just drastic. As usual, the owners cry poverty, but they will not open their books for anyone to see if they're really losing money. Now, this is the same refrain from every work stoppage. Isn't anyone listening? Isn't anyone paying attention to what's happened before? The fans want sports to return, but the sports stage will be more crowded than ever, with the NBA, NHL, and MLS starting back up soon, and the behemoth of the NFL just around the corner. They're already dominating the sports scene year-round. Major League Baseball might find itself squeezed to the periphery. Hasn't Major League Baseball learned anything? Can't they look back at their history and see what has happened every time they've had a work stoppage? The fans are more and more reluctant to come back. They did it in 81. The fans came back pretty quickly. They did it in 94, 95. It took them 3 years for them to come back fully. It took Cal Ripken and a steroid-fueled home run binge to bring the fans back. The game was damaged hard in 1995. Management and labor need to get the collective minds right. They need to learn from their critical mistakes of the past. They need to learn that they aren't the omnipotent sporting entity that they once were. It used to be baseball was the end-all, be-all of sports. They aren't that anymore. Is Major League Baseball popular? Of course they are. Is Major League Baseball part of the sporting landscape? Of course. But fans have learned to walk away from baseball. They have learned that they don't need baseball. 25 years after their last labor stoppage, Major League Baseball just doesn't hold the kind of sway that it once did. Major League Baseball may not get a second chance to repair the kind of damage that a prolonged labor stoppage would cause. If Major League Baseball ruins a full season, they may not have fans waiting for them on the other side of that chasm. And that is the final word from the wood. With music coming up in the background, you know that means your time in the Hoodwood is just about done. And I thank you so much for your visit again this week. Now, the email for the show is kjgreen@blackbanditproductions.com. You can send me emails on show topics, questions, comments, and criticism. I work with your correspondence, and I try to respond to each email as quickly as possible. You can catch this podcast on a number of sites, including Amazon Prime, where the video version is hosted. We're also on iTunes and Google Play. The show site itself is hoodwoodsports.podbean.com. And there has previous shows, back catalog, the music soundtrack of the show, which is called the Hoodwood Hustle, and audio versions of the show going back as far back as 3 years. I'm also on Facebook at Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises. I'm also on Twitter, KJGreen20 and KJGreenBB, and I'm also on YouTube. Special thanks to Rage Pictures for their continuing fine production of this show. So that's that, fellow sports fans. Until next time out in the Hoodwood, I'm KJ Green. 30.
Sports from the Hoodwood
is a Black Bandit Productions and Enterprises presentation
on the 550